Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about metal music, which is something that I hold really near and dear to my heart. Um, this is a video I've been wanting to make for so long, and it's been something. Yeah, it's basically just been a video I've wanted to do so long. I've tried it a few times in different ways, and I didn't like it, and I never uploaded it. But I'm trying it this way, and we're gonna see if that works. Um, and what I mean by that is the idea I've had is I wanted to kind of talk about like my introduction to metal music, and maybe share kind of like what my thoughts about it, and maybe other people wanting to get into the genre and have trouble like figuring out where to start. This could be a good starting point. Or you also like metal music and just want to see this video just to shit on my opinions or whatever. I don't care. This is just what I think. But um yeah, it doesn't matter why you're here, but you're here. Um but yeah, I wanted to make a video talking about like how I got into metal music and some recommendations, I guess, I would have to get into it. And I don't know. I mean, these are bands that really helped shape me into who I am today. And I just thought it'd be a cool idea to share it and hopefully not make it boring. But anyway, I'm just gonna start yapping. This is just gonna be a big yap session. So hopefully you guys don't mind that. But as you see, Linkin Park, one of the most legendary rock bands, new metal. People argue if they're metal. Um, I bet a lot of people just because there's plenty of people that don't think Linkin Park is metal, and I'm not really here to define what they are, but they have um they have a hard rock sound at the very least, and they, in my eyes, um are like the definition of new metal. They did not create new metal, but they are ones that popularized it in the 2000s and kind of defined it, I would say. And if you don't know what new metal is, I'm not talking about like NEW metal. I'm talking about NU metal, which is basically like a metal genre mixing like hip hop rap elements with metal. And I would say that is probably, if you're looking to get into a genre of metal, that's probably your best bet. I would say that's the most like gateway mainstream metal genre there is. It's very like, for example, their two biggest songs, Numb and In the End. I'm sure, I don't want to assume everyone that's watching this knows those songs, but they're massive songs and they count as new metal, especially In the End. I feel like that song is like the epitome of new metal, not in the sense that they created it, but like it's just a big song for new metal. Um, and yeah, I think this is probably like the biggest gateway metal band. Gateway metal band meaning, yeah, I just feel like it's kind of self-explanatory. But this band helped me get into metal and get into a whole world that I didn't even know existed, nor that I would want to be a part of, but I am now. And I'm grateful for that. And basically, how it started for me, this whole entire journey with metal, was I found out that the lead singer of this band committed suicide, Chester Bennington. Um, I don't know if I've said this on the channel. I feel like I have a lot, but maybe it's just because I've tried recording this video a lot and haven't actually uploaded it. But um, it was in one of my social studies classes, and we were guessing the music that he was playing. I wasn't actively guessing, but I was kind of just guessing in my head. I wasn't like saying it out loud. But Numb came on, and I didn't know the band, but I knew the song, who it was by. And no one really knew it, surprisingly. Um, I mean, we were in 8th grade, but still, I feel like pretty big song. Doesn't matter. Um, and my teacher started going on about them because clearly no one knew about them. And he was talking about how they were like one of the biggest bands in the world when they were like around, and then dude just like killed himself. And I was like so in shock by that, and I was like surprised that someone that high up would want to do that. Um, and just what he must have been going through and what the music must have sounded like if they were that big. And so I tried listening to them when I got home, immediately fell in love, and then here we are. If I had to give some recommendations for albums and songs, they start off, I would say Hybrid Theory is their first album, 2000. It's like it's one of the best selling albums of all time, but this is like, I would say probably the biggest gateway metal album. It's like it's just, it's probably like the closest metal has gotten to mainstream. Actually, that's kind of a bit of a stretch. I would say Metallica is more main. Well, I don't know. That's a whole different thing. But this album, if any album from this list, I would want someone to start off listening to metal with, be this one. Personally, their next album, Meteora, which is in a similar vein like this one, which has Numb on it, came out after, had the same vibe as Hybrid Theory. I like this one a little better, but both I kind of pair together just because they're from the same time. Both sold incredibly well. And Minutes to Midnight, too, was the one that came out after Meteora. This is probably one of my personal favorites. I don't know if it is. I would maybe go out on a limb and say this is my favorite album by them. But this one is, I think, a step in a different direction for them after Meteora. And then after that, they started, I would say, going into the pop direction, and some people didn't like that, some people did. That's a whole different thing. But I would start off with those 3 albums. And, yeah, if you're not into albums either, I would say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to give, like, albums and probably my favorite song by them. Favorite songs. Probably not going to be able to name one. It's Given Up. I would say my favorite Linkin Park song ever. It's Given Up. I'd probably say, like, One Step Closer and Faint. Those are, like, some really good ones. But, yeah, Linkin Park. So I was listening to them, like, 8th grade, because it was like near the end of 8th grade, and yeah, it was near the end of 8th grade, so I was going into the summer listening to them, and I eventually discovered, because I watched Jacksepticeye like around that time. He's a huge YouTuber. He's one of the OGs. I love him as a person, and I feel like I've kind of grown out of his YouTube videos, but at the time I really liked him. And he did a drum cover of Chop Suey, and that is the song My System of a Down, which is the next band I got into. But I would kind of think, like, I would think that Jacksepticeye is kind of the one that, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I ever would have discovered System of a Down. I feel like I probably would. They're a huge band. But that is what made me get into them, because I saw him cover their biggest song, Chop Suey, and I was kind of confused because System of a Down is one of the weirdest metal bands. I would go out on a limb and say they are the weirdest metal band out there. They just have a very unique sound, and they're very, very interesting. But I was kind of put off the first time I heard them, but slowly it grew on me. I didn't know why, but I slowly liked it more and more, and eventually I started playing the bass line. Then I was playing other bass lines by them because I play bass, and then here we are. Standouts to me, their self-titled album I would say is my personal favorite. It's definitely the most hardcore from them. If I were to suggest an album to get into, like, you're new to metal, I probably say Mesmerize or Hypnotize. I put Mesmerize and Hypnotize together. They're like, I feel like kind of they're like the same album, but split up into two. And Toxicity is also like their biggest commercially successful album. It's a classic. It's got some of the greatest System of a Down songs they've written, they've been made. Aerials is a song that really helped me get into them. Super catchy. And yeah, if I were to I would suggest Aerials, Toxicity, and Chop Suey songs to get into them. I mean, the whole album I would suggest. And yeah. Also, too, I would probably suggest Sugar off of their self-titled album, which is their biggest song off this album. And as much as I love it, I played it for my family, which is not into metal, and they don't really love all the stuff I play. Most of the time, they don't like it. At first, they didn't think I was serious about it, but I was, and then they grew to accept it. But Sugar is a song that I feel like is pretty hardcore. It's pretty silly, but I like it. I played it for my family. My sister that loves pop music and stuff like that, not into really even rock music at all, for whatever reason really liked that song, and now it's one of her favorites. Not like one of her favorites ever, but she did really like the song, and she played it, like, she listened to it on her own time, and, like, I don't know. So I'd suggest that one too. But yeah, that's System of a Down. After System of a Down, I can't really remember how I went from System of a Down to Slipknot, but I did. After System of a Down, I did not mean to do that. System of a Down, Slipknot. And I would say, personally for me, and everyone's different how they got into metal. Maybe they just grew up with their dad playing metal music all the time, so they just knew all these bands. I have a friend that's kind of like that. But for me, I used to be one of those people that hated metal music. I never got it. I thought it was stupid. It didn't make any sense to me, and I'm just like, who the fuck? Excuse my language. Who would listen to this? Didn't understand it. Like, it made no sense. Now I get it, but it took a while for me to get into. It took me I feel like a year to really enjoy the music. But there was something that would always, as much as maybe I thought the song was kind of too much for me, there'd be something that always drew me back, and that's, I don't know what that is. I think maybe it was just curiosity, just because this music is something of its own. Music is, most commonly, music is not like this, screaming and just hardcore in your face. It's usually happy, sad, usually those two. Angry was a different mood of music I was getting into. Hence Slipknot, which I would go out on a limb and say is one of the angriest band. Okay, not one of the angriest, but at least one of the most popular angry bands. I feel like they harness just pure frustration and anger so well, without being super heavy. Not to say that they aren't heavy and could be very, scary, I guess, because they wear all the masks. It's so scary. But yeah, and something I didn't mention with System of a Down and Slipknot is all three of these bands are nu metal bands. Hence my thing that I said at the beginning, nu metal, because there's so many subgenres of metal. Subgenre meaning a genre of a genre. Nu metal would be your best bet into getting into metal music. I would be surprised if you didn't get into metal music through something that wasn't nu metal, as a subgenre to get into music, metal music. But to each their own. Anyway, Slipknot. I would say, for sure, one of my favorite metal bands. I don't know if I have a favorite metal band, but I wouldn't be all too, like, I wouldn't completely disagree. I wouldn't really disagree if someone like said that was their favorite metal band. But I'm talking about myself. I don't know. One of my favorites, if not my favorite metal band, Slipknot. Um, and wow, their first two albums, they're self-titled, which was their first in Iowa. Two of my favorite metal albums, and just albums in general of all time, especially Iowa. I made like my 100 favorite albums. Iowa, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was like 2 on that list. And I stand by that. Like, that album is just, will always be, at the very least, in my top 5 albums. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I find more stuff that's like super crazy good. But Iowa means a lot to me. It's just a really good album. It's probably one of the darkest metal albums ever made. I think that's what people usually give the title to, that album. It's not like death metal. It's not just like really like it's not like satanic and all that, but it's just pure frustration. I watched interviews about it, and the time they made that album, they were all in a horrible place, and it resulted in them making some really good angry music. 2 albums. I don't know if I'd suggest like diving into that as your first Slipknot album. As much as I think it's their best, of course, I wouldn't say that's like the best intro to Slipknot. I mean, if you love hardcore music, then for sure that. But like, if you're not into metal music and you don't really get it, like I didn't, I would say Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, would be your best bet, which is also another album I like. I feel like people either love or hate this album. I personally liked it a lot. Maybe We Are Not Your Kind, but I think Volume 3, Subliminal Verses, is a much stronger album than We Are Not Your Kind. But yeah, these 3 first albums, goated. All Hope Is Gone is also really good, but like these 4 maybe, especially these first 2, like perfection. Just like so good at making angry music. And then songs I would suggest, Psychosocial is good, but it's heavy. Duality, I think, was one that really got me into the band. I can't remember how I discovered it, but I would say whatever year I discovered this, I think it was 2022, I would say it was like my most played song of the year, for sure, by like a lot. I discovered it, and that chorus got me, and I just kept playing it over and over again, and oh my god, awesome. So awesome. I would say Nero Forte off of We Are Not Your Kind too. I really liked that one, was catchy. And The Devil and I was also one that I really got into, Before I Forget. And I would probably leave it at that for like songs to get into. These are not like my favorites from them. Not that I don't love those songs, but those are like ones that made me get into them. Okay, so that is how I want to start the video. These were like the 3 core bands for me that helped me get into metal. For everyone, it looks different. I kind of look at getting into metal music as a journey. People's journeys look different. People go into metal like maybe discovering because I like kind of went in metal through like looking at new metal. That was kind of how I discovered metal music and all, is like through new metal. But some people may discover that through death metal, through black metal, through groove metal, whatever. For me, it was new metal, and I feel like most commonly, it's new metal. But as you can see, the amount of tabs I have open, it's a lot of other bands. These first 3, these are the ones I really want to talk about because they were important to me. But some other ones that I think, because again, music is opinionated. Not everyone's gonna agree. There's plenty of people that don't like Linkin Park, Slipknot, and System of a Down. But just like me, there's plenty of people that love them. But just to show some variety, these are some other like new metal. Bring Me the Horizon isn't new metal; they're more metalcore. But I would say Bring Me the Horizon is another great pick. These are also all bands that kind of fell in that timeline. From me liking Linkin Park to System of a Down to Slipknot, these all these like next bands I'm going to talk about were kind of like scattered between that timeline of me getting into those bands. So I don't remember exactly when I got into Bring Me the Horizon, but it was around there. And Bring Me the Horizon has got probably one of the most interesting catalogs in metal music. They start off with deathcore, which if you're not familiar with deathcore is, it's mixing death metal, which is like Cookie Monster vocals, with hardcore, which I would say is like hardcore punk. That makes sense. Start off like standard deathcore album, and then their last album they released this year, which I actually liked. They're in the more poppy side, so I always like to say that they went from deathcore to pop music, which is not entirely true. They're still pretty heavy, and they still have their moments, but yeah. They got some really good stuff, some kind of weak stuff in my opinion, but if I were to suggest an album, Count Your Blessings I would not suggest to get into. I like that album, but I'd probably suggest That's the Spirit is probably like your best bet. Ammo is a good one too, but I think That's the Spirit is a much stronger record, and Sempiternal I'd say maybe is a bit much to get into them, but is my favorite by them by a lot. One of my favorite albums ever. But yeah, That's the Spirit, I'd say, or Post-Human Survival Horror, but probably That's the Spirit. Songs that stand out to me, just thinking about them, probably Kingslayer off their 2020 EP, Happy Song off of That's the Spirit, Chelsea Smile off of Suicide Season, Pray for Plagues off of Count Your Blessings. I could go on. There's a lot of good stuff by them. Yeah. I Prevail, I feel like, is also... I mean, these are all good bands. I feel like this is a really good one to get into metal music, because I feel like they kind of mix pop music and metal very well. And I didn't like them at first because of that. Because I think when I discovered them, I was really getting into the hardcore stuff, and I didn't like that they mix pop with the heavy metal, but it slowly grew on me. And they got some heavy tracks that are just metal, but I think most commonly they are like pop and metal. So I would feel like this is a good album or artist to dive into. True Power and Trauma are the two albums I'd suggest. I like True Power better, but Trauma is also really good. I listen to Lifelines. I kind of forgot everything about it, so I probably suggest True Power. My favorite song by them is Self Destruction. Love that song, and really any song off of True Power probably. I think there was one song on there I thought was kind of weak, but for the most part, I really like them. I Prevail, awesome. Avenged Sevenfold, I would say, is like one of the most... It would be between like Avenged Sevenfold and Slipknot for me. That's probably like... And probably maybe some other bands that are like the most influential to me, metal-wise. Avenged Sevenfold is just one of the best metal bands ever. Legendary, iconic, unique. And I would suggest getting into them if I were to get into them. I would suggest Hail to the King, which I feel like people kind of shit on. It's not their greatest record, but I think that it would be a good one to get into. It's I don't know. I think it's good. Or I would say maybe like their self-titled album, or Nightmare. Nightmare is like my personal favorite. But I'd probably say Hail to the King, or Nightmare, or self-titled. But I'd probably say these two, more specifically Hail to the King. So my favorite songs, So Far Away, which is like it's more like a rock ballad to their drummer that passed away. So that one isn't really metal, but it's one of my favorites by them. Nightmare, A Little Piece of Heaven, The Stage off of their Stage album. That one's awesome. Critical Acclaim, Seize the Day, Beast and the Harlot, Bat Country, Buried Alive. I could go on. A lot of great stuff from them. I love them. They're awesome. And not Zachy Vengeance, as much as I love him. Sinister Gates is like definitely like the most influential guitarist to me, like my playing. So, yeah. Korn, the guys that made nu metal, I think, with their self-titled album Korn, I would say they created nu metal. And because I'm talking about nu metal this whole video, like I would have to throw them in. But they got some good stuff. They're honestly not really my thing. Like I like them and they did mean a lot to me at the time, but I wouldn't say they're my favorite metal band. I didn't like them as much as Slipknot, but their self-titled album, I wouldn't suggest if you're just getting into metal, it'd be a good first metal album, just because it's so raw and, dare I say, disgusting. Not bad, disgusting, but just it's a lot. It's very raw and heavy. I would probably say Issues is a personal favorite of mine. Follow the Leader, though. Those two I'd probably suggest is albums to get into. Falling Away From Me is like my personal favorite from them. Coming Undone is good. Blind, Got the Life, Freak on a Leash, just their top 5 songs. Really good stuff from them. And yeah, can't go wrong with Korn. They literally made nu metal. Yeah. Okay. Rage Against the Machine. I don't think they're really nu metal in my opinion. I think they're more like new rock, hard rock, like rap rock. That's what I mean. Rap rock. But I still want to include them in there because they got hardcore elements that I feel like, you know, you get into the song, but then you start liking the hardcore parts, and then you want more of the hardcore parts, so then you start listening to Korn, and then you start listening to other stuff, and then, yeah, I think it'd be like a good introduction to them. And for sure, the one album I'd suggest by them, I mean, not that any isn't good, but their self-titled album, Rage Against the Machine, is a classic. I'd totally suggest that one. Or the Battle of Los Angeles, but their self-titled album is classic. It's got some awesome stuff. If I were to suggest a song, I'd probably say Bulls on Parade, Killing in the Name, Bomb Track, Renegade to Funk, Guerrilla Radio. Yeah. You can't go wrong with Rage Against the Machine. They're just heavy music with a guy rapping really hardcorely, and it's nice. And then Deftones, a huge nu metal band as well. And I didn't include Limp Bizkit, which is another huge nu metal band, which I would. They're just not really my thing. I'll just leave it at that. But I mean that wouldn't be a bad one to get into if you're into, if you'd be into that. But Deftones, very popular nowadays. Don't know why, but they are. Not that I don't like them, but I don't know why all of a sudden they're getting really popular again. White Pony, I would suggest, is like a first album to get into by them. It's a classic. And yeah, I'd probably say Change. It's a good song. Cherry Waves, Sex Tape, Be Quiet and Drive. Diamond Eyes is a good one. Yeah, good stuff from them. Good stuff. Okay, and those are like all my nu metal and then bands that I kind of got into. And now I just kind of want to like touch on some other genres that I really got into, because there are so many subgenres of metal, and obviously I can't touch on all of them, but I want to at least mention a few that like meant a lot to me. So for me, after getting into nu metal and like Slipknot, I don't know why, but it just progressed into deathcore and metalcore, which was a big thing for me. I feel like I've been listening to a lot of deathcore, metalcore the past year or two. I feel like it's kind of dived down. Like I'm not listening to it as much as I used to, but it, at least in the time that I did listen to it, it was like a lot for me. Like a lot. Like I listened to it a lot, and it was really good. Um, Difference between metalcore and deathcore. Metalcore is basically just like mixing hardcore and metal. Like I was saying with Bring Me the Horizon. I feel like Bring Me the Horizon is like metalcore, but they also mix like pop punk and like other stuff. But um, metalcore is basically just mixing hardcore punk with like metal, kind of like thrashy. And deathcore is basically metalcore, but deathy. Death metal, like I said, is just like Cookie Monster vocals and really fast blast beats and just stereotypical like metal. When you think of really dark heavy metal, probably death metal. Yeah, Wage War. I'm talking about metalcore first and then deathcore. Wage War, with their album Blueprints was really good. Deadweight, Pressure, Manic. That's just naming all of them. I'd probably say Blueprints is their best. It was just good, like top to bottom. I really liked it. The River, their biggest song off that album, was really good. Alive. I also like Slow Burn. No, that was off the Manic album. I don't know. I'm kind of getting lazy at this point. Just Blueprints, the whole thing. Deadweight's good too, but I also surprisingly Manic, their 2021 album, I feel like was a huge step up in my opinion. And then they went with Stigma, the album they came out with this year. Just like, I was pretty sad to hear it because I don't know what happened. They just like went all Nickelback on us, but to each their own. That's my opinion on it. But I'd say Blueprints is an album that you should listen to. Stitch is also a good one, a song. The River. Honestly, I'm gonna stop like naming songs unless they mean a lot to me, because like the top songs for all these are usually like I'd probably say those two. I would not say anything off of Stigma. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Stigma was not my favorite. Anyway, that's Wage War. Architects, huge metalcore band. I feel like you either love him or hate him just due to his the vocals, because I feel like his vocals are a bit different in my opinion. But I totally suggest, if anyone wants to get into Architects, I'd suggest For Those That Wish to Exist. It's a beautiful album. It's got some heavy moments, it's got some melodic moments, it's got some sad moments. That album is awesome. Also, too, just the album cover alone, like, this is pretty. Yeah. Holy Hell is a personal favorite. All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us is really good. Their last 2022 album was good. My favorite song by them, I think, is Royal Beggars, but Animals, their biggest song, is a really good song of theirs to get into as well. Good stuff by them. Kublai Khan, Texas, really just Kublai Khan. I think they just put the TX because of copyright issues. Is just a pissed hardcore / metalcore band. Just like, I'm not even able to speak at this point. Angry caveman music. Just like this guy who sounds and looks like he can beat you up, just screaming about stuff, and then really good drums and just angry music, and I love it. I love them so much. And if I had to suggest an album, Absolute for sure, or Nomad, but those two, especially Absolute, it's just so good, just so angry, and I love it. Like when I'm pissed and just want to kick someone's ass, I listen to that. I don't really ever feel like kicking anyone's ass, but when I'm pissed or when I just want to listen to this type of music, there you go. Nomad's also really good, but these two. Also, they just came out with a new album. Loved it. That's also a good one. Exhibition of Prowess. Prowess. Don't know how to say that. Don't make fun of me. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Love Kublai Khan. And then I think Knock Loose. Yeah. Knock Loose is like a similar is similar in Kublai Khan, is in like the type of music. It's like hardcore / metalcore, very pissed, but the vocals are like on the other side of the spectrum. They're kind of high pitched, and you either love Knock Loose or you hate him, because his vocals are different. And at first, I did not like Knock Loose because of his vocals. It sounded like, as a lot of people say, SpongeBob, and I didn't like that. But his voice grew on me because, oh my god, does he sound so fucking pissed. And his emotion, like, I don't know. It grew on me. And I just love how angry he sounds. He sounds so mad. And that's why I love it. If I were to suggest an album, one I got into is Laugh Tracks. That one's awesome. A Different Shade of Blue. Really, any album. Pop Culture is kind of weak. I mean, I liked it. But I would say Laugh Tracks is where they really started. And then they came out with an album this year. And wow, is it getting like a lot of praise. Even from people that don't love metal music. So I would also highly, highly suggest listening to that one. I love that album. But yeah, any of those four really. And my favorite song by them is probably Dead Ringer, or what was the other one? Dead Ringer or Oblivion's Peak off Laugh Tracks, or Mistakes Like Fractures too. Anyway, that's metalcore, deathcore. I'm gonna speed run through this because this video is getting too long at this point. Whitechapel, deathcore, Titans. Yeah. If I were to suggest an album, The Valley. What? Actually, no. Well, I mean, yeah. If I were to suggest it to someone just getting into metal, I'd probably suggest The Valley or Kin. I feel like I've heard a lot of people not loving Kin or The Valley. I like The Valley and Kin, but The Valley kind of blends some hard rock elements with deathcore, some melodic moments. I really liked it. If I were to suggest it, well, no, I just suggest it if you're getting into metal. But my favorites, probably their self-titled album and This Is Exile, as well as Mark of the Blade. That one's really good. Good stuff from them. My favorite one, The Saw Is the Law, is a great one from them. And This Is Exile. Off of This Is Exile. Awesome song. Yeah, Whitechapel. Now, Chelsea Grin. I'm already going to say Recreate. Their biggest song, I would say, is like the one song I would suggest by them. It's just heavy. It's disgusting. The breakdown is stupid, but it goes hard. And I love them. And I would suggest Desolation of Eden. Actually, to someone just getting into metal, I would suggest Eternal Nightmare probably. But Desolation of Eden is really good. But also, too, it's hard to compare because Eternal Nightmare and Desolation of Eden have two different vocalists. So it could just be like a preference of which vocalist you like more. But both albums are good. Also, Cruchabanger. That one's good. That one's a classic. Hostage. Good stuff from them. Just good freaking stuff. Thy Art Is Murder. Oh my god, I love them. I don't love the new vocalist. Actually, that's not true. I really haven't given the new vocalist a chance, so I take that back. But I miss CJ McMahon, the old vocalist. He just got booted out of this year, I think, or last year, out of the band. And sucks. Sucks a lot. And to be fair, I don't want to shit on this band now or get mad at this guy because of that, because realistically, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, why he was kicked definitively. Like, maybe they said, like, he said something hateful. I think it was, he said something that was, like, kind of stupid and they kicked him out or whatever. There was probably more behind that than just that. Like, maybe he just didn't get along with the band members, so who am I to judge? Doesn't matter. I try to differentiate the people from the music, and I love their music. Um, and I love CJ's voice. Oh my god. Um, yeah, Die Artist Murder is awesome. Hate is like my personal favorite album by them, 100%, and I think it's like their biggest. Dear Desolation is really good. Human Target. Uh, yeah, I mean Human Target was good, but I'd say Hate and Dear Desolation, awesome. Infinite Death is different. I think they had a different vocalist, but it's like crisp. It's awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Love them. Suicide Silence, the deathcore band for me, and also it's just like the quintessential deathcore band. They are like the ones that I don't know, either popularized it or made deathcore, but they are like the deathcore band. I have not, just saying it off the bat, I have not listened to any of their new stuff past Mitch Lucker, which was their original vocalist, which is really what made them popular, was him and their music they made together. Like, classics. And then after that, I feel like, seems like people just clown on them because they're not as good and maybe even bad now compared to what they were before that. I'm not to judge because I haven't even really tried out the new music, so I wouldn't even have like a really good word on it. But just because of everyone saying that, I'm like, I don't really feel like trying it, and I just like the stuff with Mitch Lucker on it. And the 3 albums that have Mitch Lucker on it are The Black Crown, No Time to Bleed, and The Cleansing. Awesome albums. The Cleansing is my favorite for sure, but I think The Black Crown is probably the most mainstream one, though it's deathcore, so it's not mainstream, but it's their like probably lightest music maybe. I mean their biggest song off that album and just in general has 139 million plays, which I always find crazy considering this is deathcore. But it's You Only Live Once. That song's a banger. My favorite song by them is probably Unanswered or No Pity for a Coward. But again, all these songs right here are actually probably my top 5 too. So, yeah, if I were to suggest albums, and really the only ones I've listened to by them, it's the 3 right here: The Black Crown, No Time to Bleed, and The Cleansing. Awesome albums. Yeah, this band, it means a lot to me. Slaughter to Prevail, a band I love a lot too. I've listened to all their shit. The Chapters of Misery one I forgot about. Misery Sermon I really tried to get into. Didn't really get into. It was nothing really to me. Coastal On, one of my most played albums ever. Love that shit. Awesome. Played it way too much, but I listened to this album an ungodly amount. And then they just came out with this like a week ago or whatever. It's just like a collection of all the singles they've been releasing past like year or so or whatever. But the one album I'd suggest by them is Coastal On. But I love this band, and Alex Terrible, the lead singer, oh my god, is he a teddy bear? He looks scary, but I think deep down he's just like a little teddy bear. And yeah, also, because I'm talking about them, I just have to show, I think I did a post about it. I got one of their masks. They sell masks, and I bought one. It's like $150, so it wasn't cheap. But they also mean a lot to me, and I love Alex's vocals. I love the masks. I love the music. I really love this album. That's really it. And then all the stuff they've been putting out after that. But I think Misery Sermon and Chapters of Misery, not really my favorite, but I don't know. Good band. And Lorna Shore, a really big band for me. I think they're a big deathcore band, but I really only got into them like when Will Ramos got into the band, because they've had numerous vocalists for this band, and their latest one, Will Ramos, has been like the one for the band for the past I Return to Nothing one, and I Return to Nothingness EP, and the Pain Remains EP was Will Ramos. Everything before that was other people. I think there were 2 other vocalists, but that doesn't matter. If I were to suggest one album, I'd suggest Pain Remains. It's one of my favorites. Without ranting any more than I have been for the past 30, 40 minutes, I don't even know how long. Just that album alone is awesome. Symphonic deathcore, beautiful. And I Return to Nothingness EP is also really good. I listened to Immortal and Flesh Coffin, I think, too, which I think are 2 separate different vocalists. Those were okay. But I'd mainly suggest the ones with Will Ramos. Yeah, Lorna Shore, big deathcore band for me. And then Paleface Swiss. This is just a personal favorite of mine. I think they've been getting popular over the past year, like pretty popular. And oh my god, they do like Slipknot Iowa, the sound they had on Slipknot Iowa, this album, and just they just made that a band, and then this Paleface Swiss. This is awesome. It's just really angry, and I love his vocals. If I were to suggest an album, Fear and Dagger, and Chapter 3, I would suggest, but I would say Fear and Dagger. That one's like my favorite and just really, really good. And yeah, that's deathcore, metalcore. To go over all the other genres, because deathcore and metalcore were the big ones for me. Some other ones, thrash. Thrash metal is basically like Metallica. I bet I pissed a lot of people off by saying that, but I don't care. For thrash, I just put the big 4, which if you don't know, the big 4 are Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica. They are known as the big 4 because they are the ones that kind of popularized it. I wouldn't say made it, probably. Well, maybe. I don't know. Popularized it mainly in like the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s probably. Was it 80s? I don't know. Yeah. That was that. Slayer, I would say Rain in Blood is my favorite. And actually, I think that's the only album I've listened to by them. That can't be true. I don't know. Anyway. Rain in Blood. Awesome. No, that's not true. I listened to the Seasons in the Abyss and some other ones, but Rain in Blood is the one I would suggest. It's their best album. Metallica, the huge metal band. This is also, too, probably a really great gateway metal band for a lot of people just because they're massive. Master of Puppets is their best. But for someone getting into Metallica, 100%, the Black Album, as much as people shit on it, it's awesome. I don't care. That album's awesome, but also anything before that, anything after that, not so great in my opinion. But yeah, Metallica, legendary. Anthrax, I feel like people shit on them too because they're like, oh, they shouldn't be in the top 4. But they are. I think I listened to 2 of their albums. Among the Living is probably the one I would suggest by them. That one is their classic, and it's just thrash classic. Megadeth, I didn't like them for the longest time, but it wasn't only until recently I kind of started getting into them. I hate Dave's vocals. There are a few times it sounds fine, but most of the time, in my opinion, it just sounds annoying. But I love Marty Friedman and all the instrumentalists in the band. Like, the music they create besides Dave's vocals, legendary. Dave's vocals, I could go without, and most of the time, can't stand. But Rust in Peace, 100% would suggest. It's like one of the best metal albums ever created. Thrash classic, awesome. Yeah. So thrash is another big genre. I would say thrash is like one of the biggest subgenres. If not, I'd probably say the biggest subgenre of metal music. But some other ones I put is prog, which is progressive, which I don't even know how to define prog, but I'm just gonna, because I'm like trying not to yap for so long, I'm just gonna say that it's like math rock. Well, no, but then that's like an actual other subgenre. That's another genre. Uh, it's just it's music that is very complicated. I'll just put it lightly like that. That's definitely not the definition, but give them a shot. Tool and Dream Theater are the two I put for prog, and there's definitely others I can mention, but those are the two biggest and the ones that I love. Not that there isn't more that I love, but Dream Theater and Tool are some of the most talented musicians ever, and God, did they make good ass music, all of them. And for Tool, I would suggest Undertow or Lateralis. Um, and Dream Theater, I definitely suggest the Images and Words. Where is it? Images and Words. I did not make that. Images and Words. Yeah. These two, Tool and Dream Theater. Freaking awesome. That's prog. Groove metal, you got Pantera. The Texan boys that get angry as freak, and they got the really good drum player, and they got the really good guitar player. I'm sorry. I don't know what that definition was. Vulgar Display of Power, metal classic, would suggest that one. I would suggest Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Display of Power, and Far Beyond Driven. But if you had to pick one of the three, Vulgar Display of Power. That one's a classic. It's just good old, yeah. And if I had to define groove metal, I'd just say that it kind of self-explanatory. It heavily, the songs heavily like kind of fall on the groove. Like they're very focused on the groove of the riffs and like really just the riffs. Like it really goes all in on these riffs that the guitar is making. That's how I describe it. Gojira, legendary metal band. They played for Olympics. The one album I'd suggest, not that they don't have other good ones, is From Mars to Sirius. Sirius is definitely not Sirius. And Magma is also really good, but I'd do the Flying Whales album. That's definitely their best song, my opinion. Gojira, freaking awesome band that mixes like death metal with groove metal and all that shit. Sepultura, angry Brazilian metal. The one album I would suggest is Roots, awesome, just pissed. Yeah. Lamb of God, personal favorite. The two I'd suggest from them is Sacrament and Ashes of the Wake, more specifically Ashes of the Wake. Great stuff by them. Randy Blythe. That's the guy. That's the lead singer. Yeah. That's that. Death metal. Death metal is a very popular subgenre for people that don't even know what the freak metal is death metal. Death metal, in my eyes, is like stereotypical metal for people that don't know metal, what they think metal is. For example, Cannibal Corpse, probably most commercially successful death metal bands ever. Wouldn't say they're the best death metal band ever. Not that they aren't one of, if not the best, because I will admit I'm a poser when it comes to death metal. Death metal is not really my thing, but I can respect it for what it is because it's something of its own. But Cannibal Corpse is a band I actually, really the only death metal band I ever got into, because they're Cannibal Corpse. Yeah, they got some pretty vulgar album covers. If I were to suggest an album to get into by them, I would. Tomb of the Mutilated is kind of a lot, but that's one I got into. I'd probably say Evisceration Plague, which I feel like people shit on, but I don't know. Just take a pick. I don't know at this point, man. I've been talking for so long. Scourge of Iron is definitely like the one song I would suggest someone getting into. Or Evisceration Plague, probably Scourge of Iron. Yeah. And then Cryptopsy, I don't really listen to them. Really, the only album I listen to, and the only reason why they're here is this album. I feel like is one of the best death metal albums ever. And this death metal album, I love, and I don't even love death metal, but it's a great metal album. So I just wanted to put that in there. This album alone. And yeah, sorry, death metal. Cookie Monster vocals, blast beats, which are basically just like the really fast, and yeah, and then the Cookie Monster vocals, and if you couldn't already tell, they I was gonna say sing, but they don't really sing. Their lyrics depict death because that's the genre they're in. Also, I don't know why I just realized death isn't on here. Literally the freaking name of the genre, death. This band too. How could I forget about them? I feel ashamed that I forgot them. The Sound of Perseverance. That's the one I might suggest by them. But also Symbolic's really good. But also The Sound of Perseverance. Good stuff. Death is literally the people that made death metal. So I had to include them. And then Gent, which is, I think, a more recent subgenre of metal that's kind of been popular. And really created and popularized by Meshuggah, which is a metal band I've been getting into the past few months. Oh my god, am I obsessed with them. They're awesome. Really, really, really awesome. I'd suggest Obzen. Just good shit by them. Bleed. Break My Brain. The music is so complicated, but works. And the drummer is awesome. It's just awesome. All in all. And Periphery. Oh, I didn't even say what Gent is. Gent is I don't even know how to describe the genre. But Meshuggah created it. It's basically just Meshuggah core. And if you don't know what Meshuggah core is, it's Meshuggah. And if you don't know what Meshuggah is, I'm too lazy to explain at this point, so you could just go listen to them. It's just like really it's like caveman, like angry music, but the music is really complicated. That's how I'll say. And Periphery. Which Periphery is like that, but more melodic. Meshuggah just like screams, and they're just like, "Arr!" But Periphery is like, they sing. Like the guy's got a really good voice, but he also does the hardcore screams. Really good gent band. Era, which I kind of put more as like metalcore, but I guess they're gent. Their last album, the one they came out with this year, I didn't even realize that was this year. Anyway, Cure, awesome freaking album. And then I think their self-titled album was also like really good in my opinion, but good stuff from them. And then lastly, Unprocessed. I listened to their 2023 album and I had to include it on here. I love that album. Good stuff. And I couldn't, and just to end this all off, I couldn't not mention Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath making a metal video talking about metal, because Black Sabbath is the band that is responsible for creating metal, and people have different assumptions, like the Beatles created heavy metal with their song Helter Skelter, or this band did that, or this band, whatever. I feel like most commonly, I guess, popular opinion, not that popular opinions, right, but Black Sabbath is like the godfathers of heavy metal, more specifically Ozzy Osbourne, godfather of heavy metal. And I just had to mention them because it's Black Sabbath, legendary band, their album Paranoid, as well as their self-titled album, which is awesome, Master of Reality. Awesome musicians, awesome bands. And Ozzy Osbourne, his solo career was also awesome and helped contribute to heavy metal. And yeah, I need a drink because my throat hurts from talking this long. But hopefully this wasn't boring, and hopefully this went somewhere, and hopefully you took something away from this. I'd also just like to say that the genres I mentioned are only a small portion of genres, and those are just the ones I personally got into and could speak about. Like black metal is also another popular one that is basically just like satanic bullshit in my opinion, which is a genre of metal that's popular. It's like satanic. It's like kind of stereotypical metal as well. That's the genre I've not really gotten in, but I didn't want to speak about it because I haven't gotten into it. But it's very popular. There are plenty of subgenres of metal that I didn't mention that are really popular, but those are just ones that have connected with me, and hopefully they can connect with you. And that's it. Yeah. I feel like I've been talking fast for the past 40 minutes, but freak it. Whatever, I'm done. I'm gonna go like this has been an hour long, bro. I'm sorry for whoever watches this. Goodbye.